There's a growing trend among couples splitting up in our area. It's called collaborative law. Our next guest has become part of the national debate over collaborative divorce. Here to explain this type of divorce is Regina Demeo, attorney with Joseph, Greenwald, and Lake, based in Rockville. First question, what is it? Sounds good, collaborative. Everybody wants to collaborate, and can't we all work this out together? So what is collaborative law?
Collaborative divorce is where two people would sign an agreement to work things out outside of court. So basically we're taking the court out of divorce.
Now, is that the key? Because everybody wants to settle amicably in a divorce, and the key is doing it outside of the court, is that right?
That's part of it, and also maintaining confidentiality and maintaining the status quo so that while we're working out everything, no one's raiding bank accounts, no one is moving things out of the house without having a discussion about it. So it's sort of trying to normalize the process until we have an agreement on how everything is going to be dealt with.
You know, divorce, unfortunately, is a part of life, and that's because we all get these ideas in our head. Well, it's just one reason, but we have certain time frames throughout our lives that we think we've got to follow because of peer pressure, what our parents tell us. What is this life is not a race? I was reading that about you, and it sounded very interesting. Explain what life is not a race and your theory on that.
Sure. The national average is that by the age of 25, most people will get married, and by the age of 29, most women will have their first child. And 50% of all divorces will be filed within the first 7 years of marriage.
The first 7 years of marriage. And so what you're getting at, life is not a race. We shouldn't be forced to do all of these things by the clock that we give ourselves. Is that right?
Exactly.
Would this collaborative divorce have applications outside of the marriage problems?
Yes, there's a Uniform Collaborative Law Act which would expand it into business law or any sort of civil litigation, but the impetus was originally with divorcing couples.
Now, how does that differ from just trying to negotiate things outside of court and hire mediators? Because that's what mediation is. You try to, you settle on somebody, you do it outside, and they're, whatever they say, you kind of bound by. How does it differ?
It's different because you have the attorneys in there, not a neutral mediator.
Oh, okay.
And so we're trying to help people advocate on their own, and we're there as a support, basically. But we're trying to teach people how to communicate. It's a little difficult when people are divorcing, and one of the main reasons they're divorcing is that they've failed to communicate. But we're trying to teach them those skills so that after the divorce, they would be able to co-parent.
Have you done this in real life, or is it still in the theoretical, philosophical, or have you done divorces now collaboratively like this?
Oh, I've done 8 this way.
Oh, you've done 8
yes.
this way. And how did they turn out? Can you say?
Beautifully. I mean, it's an amazing transformation for the parties who learn to make joint decisions. They own the outcome. Some arbitrator hasn't made a decision about the rest of their lives, about how they're going to share their children. That's one of the hardest things, I think, is when some person that has just met the family for 8 hours has to make a decision about how these children are going to go back and forth for the rest of their lives. And it's really a heartbreaking process when that person hasn't been part of the outcome.
Now, when couples have problems and they want a divorce, is it that they don't know about this collaborative approach, or they just say, I'm going to call my lawyer, okay, I'm going to call my lawyer, or is it the fact that the legal process hasn't caught up with what you're doing?
Well, the problem is there's no ethical requirement currently for the lawyers to inform the public of their choices. So in reality, one thing that I would like to see is for there to be an ethical requirement that a lawyer would have to say, there are 3 ways to get divorced. We can negotiate, and if that doesn't work, litigate. We can help you with a mediator if you can advocate for yourself in the mediation process, or we can help you collaborate. But right now, there's no requirement to disclose that to people, so people don't even know about this option.
Now, it's not disclosed, Regina, because there's not as much money in it for lawyers, or what?
I would say that's part of the problem. I mean, there's definitely...
Things always boil down to money, don't they?
It's definitely less money when you keep things out of court. But, this is about real families that don't, especially in this economy, there's just not enough money, and people are going to get divorced regardless of how much money there is. But we have an ethical obligation to preserve the wealth for that family and to preserve the goodwill that these parents need to have when they're going forward.
Final question, is this working more on the West Coast, East Coast, or is it happening everywhere now, the collaborate?
That's a great question. It's actually been going on since 1990 out in Minnesota, where it first started. In California, it's been going on for 15 years. In the DC area, we just started doing this about 4 or 5 years ago. So it's kind of new to the area, but it's definitely taking, you know, it's picking up.
I learned something tonight, as many of us did. Regina Demeo, thanks for being with us.
Thank
okay?
you.
And we'll be right back.